Most of the fear and bias against VA loans are based off of things that just aren't true anymore or never were. So if you've ever heard that this home can't go VA or the seller's not going to accept a VA, this is for you. Before we get started, I'm Rebecca, aka the Mortgage Mentor, and VA loans are something that I specialize in. And over the 20 years that I've been doing this, I have seen so many situations where there are biases against accepting VA offers or accepting VA loans on offers, and that's a real shame. So I wanted to talk about some of the common myths or some of the pushback that I hear on VA loans and why they're not true. And a lot of times it's not necessarily coming from the sellers. A lot of times it comes from agents, and it's kind of like bad information gets passed on year after year of some bad VA deal that went sideways 5 years ago, and an agent tells another agent, and we get into war stories and all of these kind of things about why VA loans aren't as good as, say, conventional loans or even FHA loans. So one of the first that I hear always is that VA loans are harder to do. And here's the reality. VA loans do have their own set of guidelines, just like every loan type has their own set of guidelines that are slightly different from, say, conventional compared to FHA, USDA, jumbo, et cetera, et cetera. It is a separate loan, so it's going to have separate rules. And because a lot of times loan officers may not have as much experience in VA loans, they might not know those guidelines as well. And honestly, as somebody that specializes in VA loans and knows them inside and out, the guidelines aren't crazy. They are actually more common sense than sometimes even conventional can be, and certainly other loan types. So a lot of times it really doesn't come down to the actual loan product, meaning the VA loan. It's the loan officer's knowledge of the loan. And so if they don't know some of the particulars of a VA loan, then maybe that's why a deal fell apart one time, or maybe that's why there were a lot of unexpected surprises because the loan officer was actually learning as they were going through the loan. So if that's the experience that maybe a seller had had previously, or an agent had had previously, or had heard about, and then that kind of perpetuates, that myth that VA loans are difficult, that's a lot of times where I think it's coming from. Because what I really love about the VA loan and the way that the guidelines are written are to benefit the veteran. So it's not meant to be there to make things more difficult. It's to look out for them and have some guardrails in place. But again, a lot of times there's more common sense, I find, with VA loans than other types. The second myth that I hear a lot about is that the appraisals take longer, or that the home isn't going to appraise. Now, where this comes from is that technically, when a VA loan appraisal is accepted by the appraiser, when that order is accepted, they have 10 business days to complete the order and send it back to the lender. Now, the reality is most of the time it happens faster than that, but they do have those 10 days. Outside of that, really it's a standard appraisal. So the VA appraiser is going to be looking to make sure that the home meets minimum property standards. So the home has to have at least minimum property requirements and safety measures, meaning, hey, if there's a set of back stairs, a set of stairs out the back door, that you can't be missing handrails, right? Or that there are signs of mold or major things that are really going to affect either the health or safety of the people that own the home, the people that are living there. So stuff like that is something that an appraiser is going to be looking for. But again, here's the secret. They also look for that on FHA loans and even on conventional loans. There are still minimum property standards that the home needs to meet because it's being used as basically the counterbalance or the asset to balance out the liability of the mortgage. So the lender wants to make sure that the home is in good shape. And the VA wants to make sure the home is in good shape, so it's not an unnecessary financial burden to the veteran to fix things like standing water in a crawl space or stuff like that. So again, when we're talking about the appraiser and what they're looking for in the home, I'm not saying that it needs to be new construction, spick and span, everything is perfect. There's no sign of aging in the home or stuff like that, but it's going to be major stuff that again affect health and safety. So the appraisals really don't traditionally take longer. And also when the appraiser is appraising the home, they're appraising it based off of the recent sales in the area. So the comparable sales or comps, similar homes that have sold within a, relative close radius and within the same price range, within the same bedroom count, square footage, all of those kind of things. So a lot of times the appraisers that are appraising these homes, because they do have to be on a VA appraisal, they have been vetted to make sure that they know what they're doing. So VA appraisers aren't trying to be more strict or anything on their calculations for the value of the home. They are just doing a standard appraisal under what the VA guidelines are, which really deal more with the condition of the property than, how the value is calculated. The third myth is that sellers won't accept VA loans. And I will say that sometimes there is definitely the bias against VA because it's maybe not as common of a loan type in an area that doesn't have a strong military presence. And I really think that that's a shame, because sometimes the reason that is coming about is saying, oh, okay, well, because the VA is 100% loan, maybe, the buyers aren't as financially stable. Or this is the one that really makes my blood boil, is when they say, well, they don't really have skin in the game. So that's like a red flag to a bull to me, because my take on that is that the veteran skin in the game is their service. The fact that the loan is 100% really has no bearing on the performance of VA loans and kind of retroactively the strength of a VA buyer. So those guidelines, again, are in place to make sure that the veteran has the financial wherewithal and that they have the credit history necessary to qualify for the loan. So the fact that it's 100% is not a factor, it's just the way that the loan is. And one of the things that I really respect about the VA is when they put this home loan benefit together, and that's really how they view it, as the VA loan, a 100% option for veterans to buy a home, is really viewed as a benefit. So it's not there necessarily as a loan program, like a loan product to make money the way that the FHA, VA conventional, and all kinds of other, or I just said VA, but conventional FHA, USDA loans are put together. They really do it there to make sure that the veteran is able to enter homeownership in a financially sound way. So the vetting of that buyer has been done by the lender. So the fact that they're not putting a down payment really shouldn't have any bearing on the strength of the offer, because it's based off of, can they qualify, can they meet the guidelines, and can they qualify for the payment. So when I hear sometimes that there's that VA, or that sellers won't accept VA loans, that's partially true. It's not a myth, because sometimes there is that bias against VA buyers, but it's really a myth that is based in, as they all are, misinformation or disinformation. So what makes a VA loan succeed, or what makes what makes a purchase using a VA loan succeed? The first thing are educated agents. So if you are a buyer looking to use your VA benefits to purchase a home, you really want to make sure that you're working with a realtor who understands the power and the flexibility of the VA loan, that has experience with the VA loan, so they can really be your advocate in this negotiation and stand up for the benefits that you've earned to make sure that you can maximize them. So it's making sure really that you have a great educated agent that knows how to make the most out of a VA loan. The second are clear expectations up front. So that's everything from the standpoint of what that appraisal turn time is going to be like. So we really want to order it as early in the process as possible, in case, for whatever reason we need all of those 10 days, or the appraiser needs all those 10 days to turn in that report. And also understanding the condition of the property. If it is something that should really probably be a rehab property, that there are significant issues with it, then maybe we need to look at a VA rehab loan or a VA renovation loan. Those are available as well. And as far as the expectations, just from the standpoint of, yes, it's no down payment. Yes, there are closing costs though. And who will be paying those? So that leads to the third thing that contributes to having a positive outcome using a VA loan to buy a house, and that's a loan officer that also knows what they're doing. So making sure that your loan officer has significant experience with VA, just to know some of those little quirks and some of the things that are a little different. So that way it doesn't become a surprise once you're underwriting, or once you're in underwriting, and you can have a smooth process from start to finish. So the biggest thing that I want you to know as a takeaway is that VA loans aren't risky. Misunderstanding them is, because our veterans have worked so hard and have given so much for their service, that being able to use their benefits shouldn't be another hurdle that they have to cross. So it's very important that we support our veterans by understanding what this benefit is, how it leads to homeownership, and how to make the most of it so our communities are stronger. And so we're thanking our veterans by honoring their service by understanding this benefit. So again, I'm Rebecca. Please subscribe, comment with any questions, and I'll see you next time.